So you specialize in conversion rate optimization. Does your prospective client even know what that means? So how in the world can you package your premium services? Let's talk about that in today's video. Hey, it's Alze Calhoun with Coveted Consultant. And let's just be honest, person to person, 10 years ago, conversion rate optimization, CRO, wasn't even a thing. So no one knew what it was then. People barely understand what it means now. What I want to do is make sure that you aren't just speaking in jargon and that you actually are talking about things that your client can understand and services that they would be happy to purchase. So let's go through a couple of examples here on the board. Let's assume that what you're optimizing for is signups on a website. So let's look at signups as the metric. Now, before you do anything, let's be clear on what signups actually mean. Are we talking about signups to a newsletter? Are we talking about signups for a free consultation? Are we talking about signups for a given download? What are we talking about? You and your client both need an objective metric before you get started on exactly what you're optimizing. In other words, what I'm saying is it doesn't make practical sense to optimize for everything, and it doesn't make sense to promise that you can optimize for everything. The client has no idea what that means. So when you lay out your productized service, when you spell out this roadmap, when you spell out this flight path, it's clear that everything that we do is designed to optimize for a certain metric. Okay, so let's work that backwards. So in optimizing for that metric, you're going to have to do some A/B testing. Clearly, right? You can't tell what's better than what unless you have some comparison point. So you know you got to do A/B testing. That's a phase for itself. Before that, what call to action are we actually trying to optimize with or optimize for? So is it a budget? Is it a button on the web page? Is it a landing page that we're actually optimizing for? What is the precise call to action? Like, what exactly is the action that we're after? We got to get clear on what that is. So we're changing button colors, or are we changing headlines, etc., etc. So then backing that up just a step. Let's establish an appropriate baseline. So this is so obvious, but it's oftentimes goes misunderstood. If your client doesn't have a baseline, then you can't do CRO. And so when you describe your services, then you should be making it clear to clients, if you don't have an existing baseline, we are not the company for you, right? We can only help you optimize what currently exists. You should go work with someone else if you don't have a precise baseline. So that's just being honest with your clients, but now they also know what they do and don't need before they start working with you. It helps make the engagement more efficient. Okay, so that is that example. Let's look at another one. All right, another example. Let's say that we're optimizing for a sale. Now, everybody wants more sales, right? But what exactly are we talking about? Because different businesses have different selling methods. So if it's an e-commerce site and folks are buying a $10 purchase right off the website, that's one thing. If they're talking to a sales professional on the phone, that's something else. And tracking those are different. So again, let's be clear on the number of sales, the amount of sales, the price per purchase, etc. But an objective metric before we even get started. Okay, so now let's take that step back. We know we have to do A/B testing because we have to know what we're comparing against. What's important if we're tracking sales is what the tracking method is. So if everything is happening online, great. Are folks buying in one session, or do they come back from multiple sessions? Do you have a way of tracking that? If people are, again, leaving the site to place a phone call and talking to a salesperson 2 days later, do you have some way of tracking that? If they're calling a phone number immediately and talking to someone, can you track that? So that's a whole thing that has to be understood. How are we going to track the tracking, right? So then one step before that is to establish a baseline. So again, what are you currently doing now, client? And are you organized enough to even consider CRO as an option for you at this time? As you know, you're the expert here, and there are many things in between this, and you can put more steps in here as appropriate. What's most important is that your client can clearly see there is a straight line between where they are now. If they set a baseline, we can track accordingly, do the correct A/B testing, and then begin to measure and improve how we're selling. That's obvious before they begin work with you. At the same time, internally in your company, you have a method for helping your client set a baseline. It doesn't take 6 weeks to figure that out. You have a method for installing complex tracking. You're not figuring that out as you're working with the client. That you have a methodology for doing A/B testing, the software you use and the simple things that you test, so you can quickly understand if relevant changes are being made to their sales, to their revenue. The more organized you are in this process when you describe it, the more organized you are in this process when you implement it, allows you to charge the premium pricing that you believe your expertise deserves. If you do this, you can win. I'll talk to you in the next video. Hey, it's Alze again, and I really hope you enjoyed that video. I realize that things can look really simple and clean and neat and easy when they're laid out on a whiteboard, but trying to apply these things inside your business can have their own level of frustration. So what do you do now? What are your next steps? Well, if you want to watch another video, you can. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you probably should. But if you're over the information and you want help packaging and selling your unique consulting services, there's a program that I have, and you can get information on that program via a free training available right now on this page somewhere. So again, thank you for your time for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.